Hi guys, and welcome to the first video of FTP Garage, and today we're going to be actually refitting the rear silencer on my E30 Touring you can see behind me. So basically the one that's on there now isn't great, and I will show you what it looks like in a minute. The sound's okay, but I've been thinking for a while that I just want to kind of upgrade it, get some more sound out of it, and also probably make it look a bit nicer because the current fitment's pretty poor. So anyway, before we get started, what I'm going to do is move the car around so we've got more space, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so now I've got this thing spun around. You can kind of see what I mean by the fitment. It just hangs really low, and there's like a big gap here, and it just looks a bit cheap actually. And I'll show you some of the welds when we get this thing off. It's probably a bit of a cheap option that's been fitted at some point. Obviously I didn't fit this one, but to be honest, it doesn't sound that bad, and I'll cut in a clip now to show you what it sounds like. So, yeah, as I said, it doesn't sound too bad, but it's quite like a gassy sound. There's just a lot of air coming out of it. It doesn't really make much of a sort of pleasing sound, if you like, which I'm hoping the Scorpion system will do. So, yeah, anyway, I'll show you underneath. I'm probably going to get this thing jacked up, just so I can get a bit more access. It's not bad. You can see there is actually quite a lot of space as it is, but I'm going to jack it up anyway, just so there's a bit of extra room to get some of those bolts, and then I'll show you what we're dealing with. Okay, so now we've got this thing jacked up. You can see the frontal joining point there, and there's these four sort of bolts that run through. You can see you've got two on this side, and then there's two on that further pipe over there. You can't quite see the top one. Now I did spray these down with WD-40 last night just to try and loosen some of that rust that's might built up. You probably noticed that the rear silencer that's on there now is definitely it's fairly new. I'm going to say probably within the last 10 years or so. So I'm hoping that means that these bolts aren't too stuck on. But I mean, that might be famous last words, I suppose. You know what it's like working on these old cars. So anyway, we're going to try and get those off. If I bring you around, I'll show you some of the other fixing points as well. Okay, so looking at it from the back, you can see we've got this rubber exhaust hanger here, and then we've essentially got these two straps that hold the main sort of muffler section at the back. So I think what I'm going to start by doing is loosening those joins up there. They're probably the ones that are going to take the longest, and then once that's loose, I'll probably try and get these off, and then we can probably try and get it off the hanger. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so these would appear to be 13mm bolts and nuts, so let's see if these will come off. Wow. And this is why we spray stuff down with WD-40. Makes a hell of a difference. Okay, that's one loose. Wow. And another. Let's see if we can get at that one. That one is actually already loose. Just what you want. And then the last one is going to be quite difficult to access from this side. Let me have a look to see if we can get that any easier. Okay, so we managed to get that top one off, and what I ended up doing was I reached in from the rear side of the car. So I reached in with that 13mm socket on an extension from the rear side, and then essentially what I did is I got this long flathead screwdriver, jammed it in the gap up there because I just could not get the box wrench on, so the nut couldn't move, and then I'd already cracked it off from this side with the socket, so it was basically just hand tied at that point. Loosened it enough until the whole collar span round, then you can see I've rotated it much further around, sort of down towards the ground, so that's probably how I'll end up putting it on. So anyway, all I need to do now is remove the two nuts from those bolts over on the other side, which are just hand tight, and yeah, then this side should be fully undone. Okay, so you can probably see now all those collars are loose down there, which means it's time to move on to these two brackets here. I'm hoping these will come off relatively easily. They don't look too rusty, but yeah, anyway, let's have a go. So anyway, it's quite funny because this one here, although it looks much better than the ones down at the front did, it's actually been the stiffest one so far. So I don't know how old these brackets are. They look a little bit mangled, so who knows. But I've got these two nuts cracked off now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move a jack stand to support the weight of this exhaust, because basically the only thing really supporting it, or at least a large amount of weight, will be these two brackets here. Obviously we do have that rubber hanger, but that's not going to really support much of the weight once these come loose. So I'll probably try and move something in down at the bottom. I might have to move the jack down there, and then I'll bring a jack stand up to this end as well. Okay, so you can see I've got a couple of jack stands there. I mean, I basically put one right under this muffler section here and on the bend of the pipe there. For that last bit's not going to be too heavy, so hopefully this will hold the majority of the weight. You can see I've also taken these nuts right off now, so the brackets are loose. However, one thing I'm going to do is just spray some WD-40 on that rubber out there, just to try and help that come off, because if there's any rust on that little bit of metal that runs through it, it could get quite stuck. And I probably should have done this earlier, but yeah, hopefully this should help it get off a bit easier. Okay, let's get some sprayed on there. Just totally douse it. Okay, so we'll leave that to soak for a few minutes, and then we should be pretty much good to try and pull this exhaust off. Okay, so you can see the exhaust is now off. It did take a bit of time to actually get this off. It was pretty rusty around the collars, which you can see a bit better under the car. I'll just bring it down here. You can see the state of that. It's not great, and also it protrudes probably about an inch into the exhaust, so all that rust is providing quite a good sort of mating point, and it's quite difficult to actually get it off. So what we ended up doing is just jacking basically on those collars of this side of the exhaust, and then that allowed basically to support the frontal section, and then we were able to sort of maneuver that and twist it back and forth until it came off. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. It does take a bit of time, and you probably will need some help to do that. These exhausts aren't particularly light, but yeah, it's good to get it off anyway. So I'll show you kind of the state of this. It's just never been a good fit. You can see it looks very cheap. It's a very sort of generic muffler look. You can see the state of these wheels I was talking about. All the sort of whatever paint and stuff was just flaked off there entirely. So yeah, it's just not very good. And yeah, I'm going to get the Scorpion exhaust out in a minute, and I'll show you just how nice that one is, because it really is a piece of art, to be honest. Just amazing welding going on. Everything just looks really nice. So yeah, glad to get this thing off. I suppose really what we should be doing now is the obligatory sound check to see how this thing sounds with just the front silencer. Okay, so here it is. This is the Scorpion half system. It's got these Le Mans tips on, which are really nice. It just gives it a really nice finish, and I don't know, it just looks really nice. The quality's great. The welds, I mean, you can see how much better they are, perfectly smooth. And of course it's fully stainless as well. You do get quite a nice sound from this, from what I've heard on other people's videos and things. So I am looking forward to seeing how it sounds. Of course it's actually in two sections, which is interesting compared to the original one, which is kind of one whole piece. So you can see we've got a piece here. This is the front section, and it clamps on right up there, actually, you can see. And there's a couple of clamps here as well. We also got new hangers, so yeah, it should look pretty good when it's on there. I'm hoping it's a better fit. It certainly looks like it will be. So yeah, I guess it's time to move on to actually refitting this. Okay, so I've got the new hangers on there. You can see they seem to fit pretty well. I'm pretty sure this is how they're meant to go on, but I guess we'll soon find out. Plenty of oil on the rubbers again, just makes it so much easier to get them in. But yeah, that's looking good so far. I think the next step will be to connect the two pieces of pipe together. Alright guys, so you can see we've got the exhaust sort of loosely positioned in place. It is going to take a little bit of adjustment to get it right, but essentially what we've done is we've strapped the two straps. Well, we're about to do the second one, the first one's in, and that's going to hopefully take some of the weight. And then we're going to have to just play around with it down at that end and try and get everything lined up, get the collars lined up. get the exhaust gasket in, and then we'll try tightening those bolts back up. Okay guys, so a bit of a progress update. It is taking some time to get the exhaust back on, which, you know, it's to be expected. That flange was very rusty, but I'll show you underneath the car and see where we're up to right now. Okay, so what we ended up doing was basically putting some threaded rod, you can see in those two holes there, to pull the exhaust section onto this front silencer, because like I say, the flange that kind of sat through there was very rusty. So yeah, I mean, it is gradually getting on there. We've probably been going for about an hour now, just, you know, trying to find the threaded rod and getting it to fit, but it is getting there, and I have managed to get, you can just see that bolt there onto the other side. Just need to straighten out that collar, and then hopefully it'll protrude enough to get the nut on the end, and then yeah, we can start to get the actual bolts in. And then once those bolts are in, that's really the majority of the work. We'll just have to sort out the straps at the rear and yeah, hopefully finish it up. So I'll check back in with you pretty soon. Okay, so after a good couple of hours of trying to get this thing aligned, we've got it as good as we can. We've tightened these straps down as far as they'll go, and we've gradually tightened those 4 bolts down there. The biggest problem you're going to have with that is access. I mean, if you have a sort of a floor lift to lift the car well into the air, it's going to make this at least 10 times easier, because it is very difficult to get a socket or a box end wrench on there. So yeah, it'll take some time, and it's definitely helpful to have a person to help you out to do that. But yeah, we got it fitted in the end. You can see the fitment at the back isn't ideal, like it's slightly off to one side and there's just not enough play in it to actually move it back. So what I think I'm going to do is just cut a little bit of this valance out, just so it fits a bit better and it isn't rubbing on that rear section. But it's really not too bad. So yeah, really pleased with that. I'm going to give you a quick sound check now, and you can see how it sounds. So yeah, as you can tell, it definitely sounds a hell of a lot better than the old exhaust. I'm really pleased with how it came out. Definitely a pretty challenging task to do without a car lift, as I say. If you do have access to one, it's definitely going to make this a lot easier, but as I say, I'm very pleased with the end result. I probably will revisit that valance and get it trimmed so that the exhaust fits a little bit better. But yeah, that is the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously it's the first one on this new channel. For those of you guys, if you do want to see more of this car, you can head over to my main channel, Foot to Pedal. I'll leave a link in the description below. Got plenty of stuff on this car, and that channel is much more like car reviews and, you know, that kind of video. So yeah, feel free to go and check that out. Appreciate you watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. See you later.